Well, good morning, church family. Y'all glad to be here today? Hadn't worship been good? And it's already been good. Welcome anybody who's online as well. And if we haven't met, you're new in the room. My name is Kyle, and I get to serve as the lead pastor here, and I'm so glad you're here. If you're new or new-ish, welcome to NewPoint. We're glad you're here. And we're in this series called Love Songs. Love Songs. We're talking about relationships. We're talking about marriage. And so I want to dive in today, jump right in. So if you've got your notes, jump or open them up in notes in your bulletin or on the NewPoint Church app. Go ahead and do that as well. And so today we're going to continue this series. Now, this series, I know that not everybody's interested in a series on love and relationships and marriage, okay? I know that there's a whole bunch of you in different places. Some of you are single and fine with being single. Some of you are single and dating. Some of you are engaged. Some may be married. Some may of you be divorced and remarried, or divorced and remarried again. Or some of you may be widows or widowers. Like, I understand there's a spectrum of relationship here that happens. Here's what I believe. When I preach to a series or a message on marriage and on relationships, I believe that God is way bigger than Pastor Kyle, that God wants to speak to every individual person, no matter what your situation is, and that the truths that we find in his word are equally applicable no matter what situation you're in. So I know that each week may not be a topic that you're particularly dealing with, but my hope and my prayer is that all of you are opening your heart and your eyes to let God move in your life in the way that you need to hear from him. And so today, that's again my prayer. We're in week 2 of this series. Now, let me give you some review. Last week, we kicked off the series in week 1 with the topic of the pursuit. And in this series, here's what we're doing. I wanted to talk about it in a way of acknowledging some of the myths that our world has about love and about relationships. Let's just acknowledge them and let's see how they compare to what God's word says. So here are some of the myths we talked about last week. Myth number 1, there's only one person for you. And if you don't find them, you're out of luck, all right? Here's a second myth that we looked at. Singleness is bad, wrong, or sinful. That there's something messed up and wrong with you if you're single. And the third one we talked about last week was this, that if I find my person, then I'll be happy. If I just find them, I'll be happy then. And so if you have ever thought or believed or struggled with any of those, I want you to go back and watch or rewatch last week's message. You can find it on YouTube, because we talk about these myths and how they have us twisted. But God's truth is so much better. His truth is so much better. So today, we're going to continue on in this series. In week 2, I've titled it, The Promise, The Promise, The Promise. So if you got a Bible, we're going to be reading a little bit of Song of Songs again. That's kind of where our topic or our title for the series, Love Songs, came from. Because in the Bible, we have this piece of the Bible that is a book. It is really a collection of writings, a collection of love letters or love songs written by a man named Solomon, and it's found in the Old Testament, and we call it the Song of Songs or the Song of Solomon. And in this part of the Bible, what Solomon has done. By the way, Solomon was he was a king in Israel. His dad was the famous King David of Israel. And Solomon probably inherited some of his dad's musical abilities and was a musician and a singer and a lyricist. And we can see the evidence of that in this Song of Songs document. And so as we're reading through it, though, we see that he has written in such a way, it's kind of like from the perspective of a wife or a woman to a man and a man to a woman, as they kind of banter back in a good way about we see their kind of the romantic love towards one another. And so we're going to see it even today as we read this. So let's pick it up in Song of Songs, chapter 3, starting verse 6. And we see the context of the story begins written from the perspective of the lady as she is looking and longing for her hubby, her groom rather. They're not married yet. He's getting ready to come get her to get married. And here's what Solomon says. Verse 6 says, "Who is this coming up from the wilderness, like a column of smoke perfumed with myrrh and incense, made from all the spices of the merchant? Look, it's Solomon's carriage, escorted by 60 warriors, the noblest of Israel, all of them wearing a sword, all experienced in battle, each with his sword at his side, prepared for the terrors of the night. King Solomon, he made for himself the carriage. He made it of wood from Lebanon. Its posts he made of silver, its base of gold. Its seat was upholstered with purple, its interior inlaid with love. Daughters of Jerusalem, come on out and look, you daughters of Zion. Look on King Solomon wearing a crown, the crown with which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding, the day his heart rejoiced. And so we have this perspective, Solomon is telling us this perspective of his bride to be as she sees him coming to get her. He is dressed to the nine. He's in his Ferrari. He's rolling up. He is ready to take her to the altar to get married. That's the picture that we have here. And she's like, hey, check out my man. Here he comes. And she's kind of bragging about it to these other ladies. And so we kind of see this situation unfolding on their wedding day. And then we have the Solomon's response to his bride. Now, I remember the day that I got married, June 2nd, 2007, I remember standing at the altar and watching the doors fling open wide as Cheyenne, my bride, was dressed and ready to be wed, and how beautiful she was. And I remember that. I have that picture in my mind. I started tearing up and crying about how good God is and how lucky of a man I am to be marrying her. And so I remember that moment, and this is Solomon's moment. Solomon sees his bride, and here's what he says, chapter 4, verse 1. He says, how beautiful you are, my darling. Oh, how beautiful. Your eyes behind your veil are doves. Your hair is like a flock of goats descending from the hills of Gilead. That's romantic language right there. He says, your teeth are like a flock of sheep, shorn, each coming up from the washing. Each has its twin. Not one of them is alone. Your lips are like a scarlet ribbon. Your mouth is lovely. Your temples behind your veil are like the halves of a pomegranate. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built with courses of stone. On it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. Your breasts are like two fawns, like twin fawns of a gazelle that browse among the lilies. Until the day breaks and the shadows flee, I will go to the mountain of myrrh and to the hill of incense. You are altogether beautiful, my darling. There is no flaw in you. Romantic. That last line actually is pretty good, all right? I'm going to tuck that one away for later. But the rest of it, I thought it's kind of funny. Like as he's describing his bride, he looks at her and have you ever read something literally, even though you know it's poetic, not meant to be literal? So I found this meme, this picture of what the literal perspective of what Solomon is looking at with his bride. Look at this picture. This is kind of what she looks like. He's like, wow, you're good looking. Got the sheep and the long neck. Yep, it's all there. And at the bottom, it's kind of funny. It says she was strange looking, but Solomon loved her. I thought that was comical. And here's the thing. We're just beginning this conversation about marriage. And I know not everybody's married, and I know not everybody's wanting to be married. I know some of you are wanting to get out of being married. I know you're all into the spectrum, but I really believe that we need to tackle some of the topic of marriage today, maybe from a perspective that I haven't done before. Here's the reason why. Look at the stats. You probably have heard them or know them, but 50% of all marriages end in divorce. So 1 in 2, half. And when you get remarried and have second or third divorces or marriages, listen, 67% of second marriages end in divorce and 73% of third marriages. Like, it doesn't get better the more you try. It just kind of, the odds are against you. And so I think it's a really important topic that we talk about marriage, because I believe God's got a better way. God has a better way. Now look at this stat. In Oklahoma, we have the second highest divorce rate in the nation. Out of all the states, 1 in 10 marriages in Oklahoma will divorce this year. Now let's talk practically about that. There's probably more than 10 marriages represented here. That means that at least one of you, if not more, are not going to be married this time next year, over the next year. And so to me, that really puts a lot of pressure on me as a pastor because I don't want that for you. I want something better for you. Not only that, as I talk about it from a perspective of before you get married in this topic today, I want to set you up for success before you get into that situation. Here's another stat that talks about marriage. It says right now the average length of marriage is only 8 years. Only 8 years. That's the average of all marriages today. So in summary, marriages aren't faring too well, and it's a topic that we do need to talk about. And so some of you hear those stats and you're like, well, good, because I'm not getting married, right? So the solution is, if marriage is so bad, let's just not get married. Let's just see how it goes. Let's just have a relationship, but let's not take it to that level because it is not going too well for those that get married. I've seen it. It's not good. And that's a legitimate response, and in fact, that's actually been the response of of most people over the last several years. Look at this statistic that over the last since the 1970s, over the last 50 years, this is the marriage rate of individuals from 1960, 1970, where it hit a peak, all the way to today. In a sense, here's what it means. You see the chart going from tallest or high to low, that 85.9, almost 86 people for every 1,000 people are getting married in 1970. And you get to today or to 2022, only 34 people out of 1,000 are getting married every year. Here's what it's saying. This statistic, this chart is showing us that there has been a 60% decline in marriage rate over the last 50 years. So there's really only a couple of explanations. Either people are choosing to stay single and not get into relationships 60% of the time more. You think that's the case? Probably not. Or the other solution is people just aren't getting married. And I would say that that's probably the truth. Now, here is the stats on that. I'm going to put a couple more charts up here. So the first chart, I know you can't read it, but you can see the general trend. The left chart is age 18 to 24. The right chart is age 25 to 34. So 18 to 34 ages, this is representative of them. The red line on top is the number of marriages, the percentage of marriages that are happening over the last several years, over the last 50 years. And then the line on the bottom, the blue line that's ticking up, is the percentage of people who are choosing not to get married, but are choosing to live together instead, to cohabitate, okay? So here's what the general trend is saying. That although we have 60% less marriages, it's not that they're not getting into relationships. What's happening is marriages are declining, but people are choosing to live together at higher rates. And so all young couples, for the most part, now couples are choosing to live together instead. And so to the point where right now, currently, 70% of all couples choose to live together first and get married second. 70%. So a large majority of our population. Now, I want to kind of walk you through. Here's 50 years ago, here's what the timeline looked like, all right? So follow with me. You were born. Obviously, we'll start there, okay? Everybody was born. And then you kind of go through school and grade school, some of you high school, and then eventually kind of college. But somewhere in there, you might fall in love. You might have a relationship and fall in love with a person. And then the next steps for you is to get propose, and you're going to get married. Okay, that's the next progression. And then you're going to move in together after the wedding. On the wedding night, you're going to start living together. You maybe start a family together. And then at some point, you're going to have a career. And it may be here or it may be somewhere in between, depending on your timeline. But at some point, you're going to have a career. And then this one's really nice and encouraging, you're going to die. All right? So I don't know why it's black and white and the rest are in color. It just is, okay? It's kind of depressing. But so this is the timeline of life about 50 years ago. But over time, what we've seen statistically is this has changed. What has happened is that this marriage piece has been pushed. And it's been pushed. And it's been pushed to the point where sometimes people choose to never get married. It's all the way down there. And sometimes the timeline gets messed up, that sometimes you live together first and then you have kids. Sometimes for some of you, you didn't mean for it to happen, but you ended up having kids early. And so then you chose to just move in. And then for some of you, it wasn't even you were in love, it just happened, right? It just happened. And so our timeline gets messed up. And so what's happening, we're seeing this transition take place. And the question I want to ask, and from the stance I want to approach it as is this what's best? Is this what's best? Now, let me just remove some of the pressure. If 70% of our population believes that living together before marriage is what's best, I assume that there's at least 70% in here that believe that too, or 70% that are watching. And I'm okay with thinking about that, but what I want to ask is if that's what we believe, is it based on truth or fact? Is it true or not? And is it working? Is it working? I know it's a hard conversation to have, but that's where we're going to go today. These two ideas here. So what is the reason? Why do people choose to move in together, to live together, to cohabitate, rather than get married? And I began to think through it, and I really came up with 4 reasons, and they're not necessarily all bad reasons, they're just reasons. And so I want you to write in your notes today some of these reasons. Why do people choose this? The first one is that they're indifferent. They're indifferent. What does that mean is they don't see marriage as good or bad. They're in a relationship. They just never really thought about marriage, and they really don't have any point to it. They're just kind of indifferent about it. Well, I'm in a relationship. It's going well. I guess we could get married, but we don't really need to. I haven't really saved up the money. I kind of want my career first. I don't know. And so they're just kind of indifferent to it. It doesn't matter. A second reasons why people move in together is, and don't get married, choose not to get married, is because they're resistant to marriage. Have you ever met somebody, or maybe you are the somebody that you have sworn off marriage for life? You've seen it done poorly. Your parents were married and it didn't work for them. Your grandparents were married, it didn't work for them. Your friends were married, didn't work for them. And so you've seen this track record, or maybe you've been married before and it didn't work for you. And so you kind of have this resistance to marriage. Maybe for some of you, you've never been married, but you've sworn never to get married because you just think it's a social institution, that the government it's a money grab. They just want my money. They want my information. That's what it is. For a tax benefit, what is that, And so maybe you've kind of sworn it off for that. And there's still some people who you're resistant because you're like, I don't need a piece of paper to prove my love for my person. I don't need a piece of paper. So you just choose not to get married and you choose to just live together. A couple more reasons that you live together by accident. Now, this one was interesting, but there's a stat that backs it up. 64% of couples living together said it just kind of happened. It just kind of happened. So what they mean is like they were living, they had a great relationship, it was going good, and at some point, they never talked about it, it just kind of happened. He stayed over, she stayed over, and eventually they just kind of combined lives. And there are 4 primary reasons why this happens. Look at this chart. I know you probably can't see the words, but the big red part, these are people, their reasons for living together. The big red part at 44% says they did it so they could spend more time with each other. That's not a bad thing. Hey, we want to spend more time together, and it makes sense that we would live together. A second one in the yellow at 22%, it's that they said it makes sense financially, right? We got his income, her income. We got 2 house payments, 2 apartments. Why don't we just combine so we can have more money to split on less things? We can share bills. We can share everything. So financially, for them, it was a financial choice. How about a couple other reasons top reasons? They want to test the relationship. So what they're doing is they're saying, you know what? I think this might be the person I want to end up with, but let's move in together to kind of see how it works. Let's move in. Let's test the relationship. And finally, out of convenience. I'm tired of having 2 toothbrushes. I'm tired of having 2 houses. I'm tired of being separate. It's so much easier. Let's just join lives together. And those are the primary reasons why people get into these relationships and move in together. Now, here's a final one, a final reason that you can write in, not by accident, but by improvement. By improvement. A recent statistic says that 65% of Americans believe that living together before marriage will increase their odds of relationship success. So that's not a bad reason, right? Most people's thinking is, hey, if I eventually want to marry somebody, let's test it out first. Let's practice. Let's make sure. Let's build some skills together, living together, see if it's going to work in hopes that this will lead to a healthy one of these. That this will lead to, maybe you don't even have plans to get married. It will just lead to a healthier relationship if we live together. Here is the question. How's it working? Is it successful? Is it working? And today I want to walk through some principles for us to understand from unbiased, even non-religious sources. Is this working for our culture? Are these good reasons? Love, finances, convenience, to test the relationship. Are those good reasons to go ahead and forego marriage and just start living together and maybe never even marry altogether? All right, so here's myth number one. We're going through myths. I want you to write this in. Myth number one, moving in together is a good idea. That's the myth. Moving in together is a good idea. Back to that statistic, said 65% of Americans believe that moving in together, the majority of Americans believe that moving in together is actually going to increase their odds of relationship success. But is it true? So before we put the stats on the screen, let me tell you the truth. Every statistic I looked at, and I researched hard, every statistic I found finds that people who live together, whether they get married or not, but they live together, are twice as likely to break up or get divorced than anybody else. Here are the stats. Let me show you on the screen. So 20% of all marriages end in the first year in divorce, 20%. But 49% of those who are living together break up in the first 5 years. So you've got more than a double percentage of not making it work if you're just living together. Here's another stat. We'll go 10 years. Well, maybe that's better after a longer period of time. 33% of marriages end in divorce in the first 10 years, but 62%, 2/3, who are living together break up in the first 10 years. And those are unbiased statistics of people who are choosing that because they think that's what's best. But what's happening is statistics are showing us, the world is showing us, the results are showing us that this is not true. Your relationship success gets worse when you push this to the front of the line and you move this to the back. That living together does not provide a healthy foundation to build a strong relationship, or if you have plans on getting married, a healthy marriage. It just doesn't work that way, even though that's what the world is telling you. It's not the way to do it. And today what I want to do is I want to sell you a better way. And if you're in this situation, again, this isn't to condemn you or to shame you. I want to tell you it's not too late. It's not too late to begin to shift, to begin to think about it differently, and to begin to get on the pathway of health in your relationship. So what is the alternative? What's the alternative? If this isn't good, what's the alternative? The alternative is God's way. I want you to write this in. God's way is the best way. I titled the message today, The Promise, because I believe that within marriage, God gives us both, He gives us, there's a promise in marriage, that He's promising to us that it's better if we would just try it His way. That it is better, that it's better. God's way is the best way. Several years ago, my wife got a gift for Christmas I think it was from my parents, but it was an Instapot. Anybody have an Instapot? All right, here's what an Instapot is. It's basically a digital pressure cooker, and it's pretty neat. You can cook food incredibly fast. You can kind of throw all these things into a pot, crank the lid on, tighten it down, set it, forget it, come back later, and you got a full meal fully cooked. Like sometimes, something that normally took 4 or 5 hours to cook, you can cook in like 30 or 40 minutes. Good stuff. Now, I wouldn't know that. I've never used it. My wife does, but that's what I hear, okay? What I found was interesting is the first few weeks she's learning how to use this thing, and they were just flying off the shelves. Like you could hardly find them at all. Everybody was getting them and giving them as gifts for Christmas. And Cheyenne was she was just trying all kinds of things, trying to figure it out on her own. And I began to hear all these horror stories of like these Instapots exploding all over the place, right? And in fact, here's a picture of one. This is one that happened. Like this searing hot liquid just exploding out of the Instapot. We have people going to the hospital with like 3rd and 4th degree burns, like bad stuff. And I got to thinking, I'm like, Cheyenne, there's got to be a better way than just trial and error, okay? Can we just slow it down? Like I had to build like a bomb shelter for my kids to be in while my wife's cooking. Like I'm just not sure. And so there's got to be a better way. Well, what is a better way to learn how to use an Instapot rather than just trial and error? What's a better way? Read the instructions. Like surely the person who designed it and the people who assembled it, the manufacturer, know what's best. And guess what? They've actually included in the box what? An instruction manual, an owner's manual that gives you step-by-step instructions. Because if you open it before you release the pressure, that's not good, right? So you got to put the right things in the right order at the right temperature. You got to be able to know what to do. And I want to tell you that God knows what's best for you and for me and for relationships and for marriage because he made it. He's the creator. Our God he knows what's best because he knows us. And just like if you can try to figure out relationships and marriage on your own, you can do that. But I'm telling you, you're going to have less than desirable results. And just like the Instapot, maybe even a disaster. But if you're willing to consider God's way and his instructions and his order, then God gives us promises and practical things to put in place so we can have success. So I want you to write these in today. Here's some good things to write in. There's both purpose and promise designed within marriage. Purpose and promise. I got to run through these quick, so write them in fast. Here's the first one. Marriage protects. It protects. I talk about this quite often, but you need to be reminded you're under attack. That there's an enemy that is fighting for your life. That Satan and there are demonic forces that are in this world, and their primary thing they're trying to do is to destroy you. In fact, the Bible says that Satan's primary purpose is to kill, steal, and destroy you. That's what he wants to do. And so often he attacks relationships. Whether you're dating, engaged, married, or living together, it doesn't matter. He wants to destroy you and your relationships because you were created in the image of God. And if he can destroy you, he can destroy the image of God. That's what he wants to do. And so we're under attack. Well, what marriage does is marriage is an intentional relationship where God protects it. You're always under attack for sexual temptation or conflict or jealousy in your relationship. And that happens whether you're just living together or married. Let's be honest. Just because you're married, they're not perfect. If you're tempted before marriage, you'll be tempted after marriage. If you struggle with things before marriage, you'll struggle after marriage. But what it does, it puts you in the right environment to overcome. Here's what happens when those situations happen and you're just living together. The tendency when things start to go south and you're just living together is to get out. It's to get out. What marriage is, it's an intentional covenant and promise to God and the other person that even when things get difficult, even when the enemy is at his best and I'm at my worst, I'm committing to love this person through thick and thin, through better for worse, till death do us part. I'm in for the long haul no matter what comes our way. And what happens is you close the escape hatch and you're promising to the other person and they feel the reassurance of the other person. They say, I know that no matter what we go through, my person's in it for the long haul. I can trust him. But when you're in this situation, it's so easy to turn tail and run. And I believe that's partly why relationships break up so often when you're just living together, because there really isn't, no matter what you say, there really isn't a lasting commitment. The risk is a lot lower because you can get out. It closes the escape hatch. Here's the second thing I believe that marriage does. The second promise and purpose is marriage provides. Marriage provides, it provides for the spiritual and the emotional and the physical needs of each person. I want to just focus for a moment on the physical needs or the sexual needs. Here's what Paul says about marriage for a moment. In 1 Corinthians chapter 7, he says this in verse 1. He says, now, for the matters you wrote about. Now, let me give you some context. Paul's writing a letter to the Corinthian church, and most often he's not just writing anything off the top of his head. In this situation, they've written him, and he's responding with a letter. They've written him, and they've asked about this scenario. They said, all right, people are getting married, people are not getting married, people are having sex, people are not having sex. Like, what's the best practice? And they wrote him a letter, and here's what they said. Now, for the matters you wrote about, here's what they said. It is good for man not to have sexual relations with a woman. So here's what they're telling him. They're saying, all right, Paul, like, we understand there's so much temptation, there's so many problems, that isn't it just best never to have sex? And Paul said, yep. Keep going your way. All right, go on your own way. No, he didn't say that. I'm glad he didn't say that. He said, yeah, you could do that, but rather than just not having sexual relations, let me tell you a better way. Let me give you some best practices. And here's what he says in verse 2. He says, but since sexual immorality is occurring, each man should have sexual relations with his own wife, and each woman with her own husband. The husband shall fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but yields it to her husband. And in the same way, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but yields it to his wife. Do not deprive each other, except perhaps by mutual consent and for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer. And then come together again, so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. Here's what Paul is saying. He's saying, in culture, we can see it. There's so much sexual temptation to do things poorly, to do things out of order. But he says God's blessed us with this to fulfill those needs. That there is safety within marriage to explore sexually. And the reason being is this, is because when you are engaging in intimacy in marriage, you can trust the other person that whether it's good or bad, no matter what's going on, that they are in it for the long haul and they're going to work on it together. And the goal is to make sure everybody is satisfied. But if you're just living together in something like this, there's not so much of a commitment. And so if intimacy isn't good, or it's not the way it should be, then you're always thinking in the back of your mind, well, are they just going to leave me? Or if we haven't been intimate in a while, maybe they're finding it somewhere else. Maybe they're going to get it somewhere else. And so there's always this temptation to get satisfied or to try to be satisfied in other avenues. But in marriage, God says that is what marriage is for. And I want to tell you that intimacy in marriage grows. It grows the longer you're married because you realize you're committed to making it work and getting better over the long haul. This is the best way. And God's saying, I've given it to you. Try it my way. He says, if you do it this way, that if you put things out of order, that there's a good chance that you're setting yourself up for heartbreak and heartache because they're not committed to you. They just want something from you. They just want something superficial. They're trying to have something satisfied, but they're not really in it for the long haul. And that's why intimacy in marriage is best. God designed it. God designed it to provide a place for that. I want to go to the third thing real quick. The purpose and promise. Marriage, number 3, it produces. Marriage produces. What I mean by that is marriage produces healthy families and godly children. It's no secret that kids thrive in a family where there's a dad and a mom, where there's a husband and a wife who are committed to each other, to loving one another. Now, that doesn't mean they're perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect marriage, and kids will see your marriage as it is, the ups and the downs, the good and the bad. But let me tell you, God designed it that way. Because what they're witnessing is they're witnessing a picture of what a healthy marriage looks like. When there's difficulties, they work through it. They stay together. They work it out. They talk about it. They forgive and offer forgiveness. And when they're watching kids thrive in this kind of an environment because they feel safe and secure that mom and dad are not going to leave, that mom and dad are going to work through their stuff, and the love they're seeing from mom and dad is reciprocated towards them, and what they're seeing is a model of what God's love is to them. My parents didn't leave me. God won't leave me. My parents are in it for the long haul. God is. They're seeing a picture. And that is the most healthy way to raise a family and to have kids. Here's a fourth thing I want to share. Marriage proclaims. Marriage proclaims. God designed marriage to be a megaphone to the world around us. The interesting thing about it, Paul mentions in in Ephesians chapter 5, he compared marriage to the church, specifically the husband's love for a wife as Christ loves the church, and the wife's life and commitment to her husband as Christ loves the church. And there's this comparison. God built marriage to proclaim the love that God has for the world around us. And so how a husband and wife love each other, commit to each other, walk with each other through thick and thin, that's saying something to the world. When they look at our relationships, it's saying something to the world. And what it is, it's giving them a picture of God's love for them. And so the question I would ask is, what is your relationship or what is your marriage saying to the people around you? Because people are watching. And for God, his design for marriage is for it to be a megaphone, a proclamation of his love to people who need to feel his love. Look at John 13:34 and 35. Jesus says this, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this love, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." You see the truth in there? People are watching our lives and our relationships, and they're going to know the love of God by witnessing the love between a husband and wife, the commitment between a husband and wife. By your love, all people may know. Now, I know that there's a tendency for people that you're in this relationship right here, you're living together. There's a tendency to say, hey, it's good. Like there's a lot of relationships that are good, that are living together. And the tendency to say, well, I don't want to mess up a good thing, right? Like if we talk about marriage, I may put some pressure on the relationship. I'm not sure it's so good right now. I don't want to give that up. I don't want to risk it. And so here is a second myth I want you to write down. It's the myth that getting married will ruin a good thing. This is a fear of so many people. Maybe they've seen marriage go poorly and they're like, I'm not sure I want to go down that road. Getting married will ruin a good thing. Here's what I would say. You think you know a good thing, but you're only getting a taste of what God has for what is good. Like this is only a shadow of the good things that God has for you and your heart and your relationship and for satisfaction. You don't know good till you've done it God's way. So we look at this, and there's a new stat that's out, and actually it's relatively new. It was in 2019, just a few years ago. But here's what it is. They ask so many questions of people who were in these scenarios, living together and married. And the circled parts is this. It says, married adults have more positive view of how things are going in the relationship than those who are just simply living with a partner. And here's what the stat says. 58% of married couples say, not just it's going good, but it's going very good. 58% say it's going very good, compared to only 41% of people who are just living together. Only 41% say it's going very good. I read through this study, and we can put that away for a second, but I read through this study, and every question they asked and every scenario they talked about, and they quizzed these two different scenarios, there is a double-digit higher percentage of satisfaction and trust and fulfillment in every area of people who are married versus those who are simply living together. Every area of trust. They ask questions as it regarded to did they trust their partner to be faithful to them? Did they trust their partner to act in their best interest? Did they trust their partner to always tell them the truth? Did they trust their partner to handle finances well? In every scenario, marriage won out. When it comes to satisfaction, are they satisfied with their partner's show of love towards them? Are they satisfied with their partner's parenting choices or sharing of household duties or their work-life balance or communication or sex? In every scenario, there wasn't a single one where people living together beat people who were married. Now, I thought there might be a little bit of both but not a single category. Here's the broad question. If most people in our world think that this is the way to go, how is it going? Is it working? In every scenario, in every statistic, it's telling us it's not the best way. God's way is consistently the best way. Here's an interesting stat. 78% of married couples say they feel closer to their spouse than any other adult in their life. But only 55% of couples living together. Simply living together does not build the healthy relationship or trust or foundation you need. It just doesn't. God's got a better way. And so from hearing this talk today, there's a lot of you that are like, okay, I get it, Kyle, I get it. Let's just get married, right? Hold on, okay? That may not actually be what's best. It may not be good just to jump in and get married. Here's the myth that getting married, write this in number 3, getting married will fix everything. Getting married will fix everything. Write this in. I know it's not in your notes, but you can write it in addition to. But marriage doesn't automatically fix your problems. It amplifies them. Let me tell you the truth from somebody on the other side. Marriage does not fix what's already broken. I preached about this last week, that the number one dictator for success and health in a relationship is how healthy is and are the people's pursuit of Jesus before marriage. How healthy are they emotionally? How healthy are they financially? How healthy are they in all these other areas before marriage? Because once you get married, those things actually don't get better. They get worse in a lot of times. It gets harder. It gets harder. A few years ago, as televisions were starting to be developed, and they started to develop like higher definition televisions. Like now they have like 4K and 5K and 12K and 20K televisions. Like the resolution's insane. Well, for the viewer, it's awesome because it feels like when you're looking at a television now, you could be right there. Like you could touch the people in there. Now, the consumer, the viewer, loves high definition television. Who doesn't like high definition television? Do you know who doesn't? The people who are on television. Like all of the news anchors and actresses and actors, because what they could easily in the past just cover up with some makeup, now every blemish is visible. Like you can't hide it. And that's what marriage does. Marriage, it doesn't hide your problems, it amplifies them. It amplifies them. In a few weeks, I'm going to preach on this. It's a good thing that it amplifies them because here's what happens. When you're single or when you're just living together and you bump up into a personality quirk or a financial difficulty or a poor sexual practice or bad communication, and you bump up against it in this scenario, or maybe you have poor spending habits, or you don't have to change. You can just get out of the relationship. Oh, the problem was them, not me, right? Over and over again. You can just abandon ship. But marriage by design closes the door because marriage is God's gift to you, so you get to grow into the better you. Because through the amplification of the character flaws in us, through marriage, God works them out of us if we're willing to let him. Marriage is a gift, but you don't have that same thing happening over here. And so you're missing it. You're missing it. Marriage won't automatically fix everything, but over time, marriage does help if you're committing to the right things, Now, I know that today, every time I preach on this topic, I know there's the tendency to feel a lot of pressure, a lot of judgment, because you're like, all right, I'm in this situation and I'm out of luck. Just what do I do? I screwed it up over and over again. What do I do? What do I do? My goal of preaching this message actually isn't just to point out something that's wrong. It's actually to give you a path forward, because it's not too late. God's got a path forward. And so if you're one of those people that's feeling really heavy right now in the judgment, I want to read you a verse in John 3:16. I want you to stand as we read this together. John 3:16 and 3:17. You know this verse. It's the gospel message. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. Here's the truth. God loves you. God loves you. God loves you. And he proved it through Jesus. But sometimes we stop there and we actually don't read on. I want you to read on today if you're feeling pressure from the Lord. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world. Let me be real with you. God doesn't want to condemn you. He's not here to judge you. He's here to save you. He's not only here to save your soul for eternity, he's here to save your heart, to save your relationships, to save every area of your life so that you'll get on path with what is best. It's never too late. You're never too far gone. God's got a plan. Do you hear that? I pray that you're encouraged today. I pray you're encouraged. I want to give you 3 steps forward. 3 steps forward. If you found yourself in this scenario, I'm going to put them on the screen. 1, 2, and 3. First step, move on. Second, move out. Third, move forward. I want you to say those with me. Move on, move out, move forward. 3 steps. And I don't know where you're at, but I know that probably one of these is applicable to your life if you're in a relationship right now. 1, move on. Some of you need to move on from that relationship. Like I talked about last week, if they are not pursuing Jesus, then you need to stop pursuing them. You don't need to be in a relationship with somebody who is not forming the foundation. They need to have a healthy relationship after you're in a relationship. You need to move on. Because either they're not the right person or it's not the right time. But the longer you stay in a relationship with them, the further away from God's best you get. So move on. I know that's hard. But I would rather spare you the lifetime of pain for a little bit of pain of having a hard conversation. Here's a second scenario. Maybe you're in a relationship, you're living together. You really do think it's the person that God's brought to you. You both are now, you've been coming to church, you're pursuing the Lord, things are changing, you're getting healthy, but you're living together. Here's my challenge. My challenge is you move out. You don't live together. Now, I know that's difficult because some of you have decided that it's convenient, it's the best thing for your finances, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be hard to make that choice, but here's why I say that. If you've moved in to a relationship, if you moved in together based upon finances or feelings or love, when those things fade, there's so much pressure on the relationship. And you're not really growing a relationship that is healthy because it's under so much pressure because you're living together. That person may not be the one for you, but you choose to stay together because you're already living together. And so you're not listening to God. You're just going to stay in the situation you're in. And so my challenge to you would be to move out. Put those up back on the screen real quick. Move out. And as you move out, you continue to pursue the Lord. And in the Lord's timing, he'll let you know if that's the right person. And then you take the third step, move forward. Some of you are in a situation right now that you know this is the person for you, but for whatever reason, you're living together, you're maybe doing things backwards, but you know they're the person for you. What are you waiting on? What are you waiting on? Move forward. God's plan is the best way. Like I did some research. I looked it up. Did you know that for less than $100, you can get married? And if you don't have the $100, I'll spot you the $100. I'll do the wedding for free. You can rent the building. Like somebody's like, Pastor Kyle, you just took away my one excuse, all right? The truth is that stop playing marriage when you can have the real thing. Because the commitment matters over and over and over and over and over again. And you cannot grow a healthy relationship on a poor foundation. Trust God's plan. Move on, move out, or move forward. And in all those scenarios, and this is the step for every one of us, we need to be working on our foundation, no matter what scenario we're in. Pursuing Jesus with all that we are, being involved in church, reading our Bibles and having times of prayer on our own, joining a small group and being in a community of other Christian believers that can encourage us. Those are some steps you can take right now, because we want to build that foundation. Build it wide, build it strong. I want you to bow your heads with me as we respond in this place. God, I know that today was a tough topic. And I know, Lord, that there's a tendency for us to feel shame or judgment. Lord, I claim the truth right now that there is no condemnation or shame for those who are in Christ Jesus. But Father, you've set us free. Today I pray for every person who is battling this scenario. I pray that you would move in their hearts and that you'd provide clear direction and inspiration towards their next step. And I pray that you would empower them to say yes to you and your plans. I pray for those, God, who are in this scenario, that if they need to move forward in marriage, God, that they would take that step and that you would begin them on a path forward. They would put a date on the calendar. They would set up premarital counseling with one of our pastors. God, that they would take steps forward. God, I pray for those that maybe aren't in a relationship or they're just dating, but they're not living together. My prayer is that you convince them now of your best ways, that you save them from getting into a bad situation before they get in it. And God, finally, I pray for those that have maybe done it out of order. God, that you would heal our hearts, that you would redeem us, that you would give us a fresh start. And God, if we're in a relationship that's good or bad or struggling or healthy, either way, God, I pray that you would help us to know what next steps to take so we can be who you called us to be, and so our relationships can begin to grow as they are supposed to grow. So Lord, today, our hearts are yours. Our hearts are yours. As you continue with your heads bowed and eyes closed for just one more moment, I don't want to leave this place without giving you the opportunity to make Jesus Lord of your life. If he's not the foundation of your life, nothing else will work. Jesus is the only way. I read that verse, John 3:16. It says, God loved you so much, he sent Jesus for you. Jesus paid the penalty that you deserve to pay for your sin. He died the death you deserve to die. But the best news of all is he rose from the dead. Jesus proved his power over your sin, over your punishment, and what he wants to give you is his life. Today, through faith, if you trust in Jesus, the Bible says God forgives you. He makes you new, and he gives you a brand new start. And if you're ready and willing to trust him today, very simply through prayer, I want to lead you through prayer. If you're ready to make Jesus the Lord and Master and center of your life, let's start right now. Pray with me. Dear God, I know you created me and you love me. But God, I've sinned in my life and I need your forgiveness. Today, I believe in Jesus. Jesus, that you died for me and you rose again. Jesus, come into my life. Forgive me of my sin and make me brand new. Today, Jesus, I'm all yours. Thank you for saving me. Amen. Amen. Hey, I celebrate you if you made that decision.